Hi, I'm Suzanne Turner, and welcome to a podcast delving into the personal narratives within the clinical research industry. Through candid interviews, we'll learn about the personal journeys and motivations of individuals who have chosen this profession, what I like to call their why. This podcast is not just for industry insiders. It's for everyone curious about the human side of healthcare. Beyond the industry's negative reputation, we'll shed light on the dedicated professionals behind clinical trials. Join us as we uncover the heart and passion of those working tirelessly behind the scenes in clinical research. Welcome to Heart of the Trial. Hello, lovely listeners, and welcome to Heart of the Trial, where we dive into the human side of healthcare, highlighting the voices often left out of the spotlight. I'm your host, Suzanne Turner, and today I'm chatting with Jen Arders, TMF consultant, former IT pro, and 3-time clinical trial participant. Jen shares her journey from the tech world into clinical research, what it was like being in the TMF and in the trial, and why that dual perspective fuels her passion for helping sponsors tell the full story. We also talk about system integrations, the future of AI and TMF, and what gluten-free should actually mean. Her insights are equal parts practical and personal, and I think you're going to love this one. I hope you enjoy, and until next time, stay curious and stay compassionate. Hi, Jen. Welcome to Heart of the Trial.
Hi, Suzanne. Thanks so much for having me.
Why don't we start by having you introduce yourself to our listeners and tell them what it is that you do?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Jen Arders, and I have recently been transitioning in the past, I'd say 10 years into the clinical area, the clinical industry within life sciences. Prior to those 10 years, I was strictly in IT. So any technological issues that you may have had with your computers or your network or telephone, I was the person that you would pretty much speak to about any of those troubles. And then kind of morphed into more project management within the R&D space. And from there, I supported medical devices with project management. I supported many large pharma companies with the project management remit. And then I landed in more of a niche area of clinical. So focusing primarily within the trial master file, or the TMF, as we like to call it in life sciences. But I also really enjoy the full details around a clinical trial. So I'm versed in a lot of different aspects within the clinical trial space.
So how did you, I want to hear the story of how you went from IT to clinical research. Like, how did that happen?
Yeah, so out of high school, actually, I taught myself, I'll really date myself here, Dragon Naturally Speaking, and I was working within like WordPerfect and all of those very old systems with the legal industry. And I just got tired after 5 or 6 years there, and I figured, okay, well, I'm not going to be a lawyer. I'm not going to be a judge. Where else can I take IT? So I took it into customer service, and from there, went into a lot of smaller companies. One which I worked at for about 10 years was a medical device company local to my home. And I learned a lot of different areas of medical devices. So obviously within clinical, we follow very similar rules and regulations. Within medical devices, it's a little more laxed. But I always had an interest in helping people. Customer service and support within IT really stood me up there in that space. And learning more about the medical devices, I actually went to a few sites and realized that, oh, it's not just medical devices, it's physicians, right? It's doing demos at doctors' offices and showing them what these things are all capable of. And then dug even deeper and went into R&D with another organization and set up their regulatory master control. If you're familiar with master control, that system, which is an electronic document management system. And we did a lot of really cool things there, and R&D is huge. And then I went to another organization when that project kind of fizzled out, and it sort of went back into my IT roots. Like I was doing user access management and some
Mm.
other things, releases, system releases, and things like that, and supporting medical writing. And I don't know, I should say, it wasn't even my decision. It was their decision. And they said, we want you to stay in the clinical and, we're going to go our route with R&D. My boss was leaving at the time. So it was a divide and conquer. She was leaving and going to the R side, right? And I was in the D side. So I was more in clinical. So the development side of clinical, and that's where I landed for the past 10 years, and worked my way up through clinical and taught myself yet again a lot of things that I didn't know. The multitude of acronyms and all those fun things that you might in real life think it means something completely different. But that's
Yeah.
how I landed in clinical. Yeah.
That's really interesting. So when you were doing the regulatory, like what were you doing? Was it just submissions or?
It was supporting the submission details, and what we did is we set up a submission portal, and it was really just checks and balances of your tables and all of the different elements that go into that submission. And while it was fun and interesting, I felt there was more that I could add to it. And the reason I thought there was more that I could add to it was because I've been in a clinical trial. So I was a patient in 3 different clinical trials. So
Oh my
those 3,
gosh.
yeah.
You know we're going to have to talk about that, right? Yeah, definitely going to want to talk about that. Is now okay? You want to come back to it?
Yeah, no, we can certainly talk about it now.
Oh my gosh, yes. Okay. 3 different clinical trials. So
Yeah.
like were they all related or like completely not, like what phases? So tell us about it. Yeah.
Yeah. So interestingly enough, when I was in the medical device area, I never knew about clinical. Like I knew what clinical was, but I didn't really know that there were so many elements, and I didn't realize that doing a clinical trial is like there's 4 phases, and there's so many regulations, and there is so much that needs to happen. And it can last for 5 years, 10 years tops, whatever. And I was in a clinical trial to find a cure for celiac disease. So I suffer from celiac disease. 1 in 133 patients are diagnosed with celiac disease. It's a genetic autoimmune disease that the body fights off gluten. And basically, any gluten that you intake, your body says, nope, this has got to go. And you can imagine how it gets rid of it.
Yes. Wow.
So with that, I realized that, there's a lot more to clinical than what meets the eye, right? There is the medical device area. There are, the vials. You'll think of the vials of drugs, the lyophilization, the rubber stoppers, the syringes, you name it, it's in there. And I thought, well, there's got to be more to this, the regulations behind it. And it got me into, okay, well, how does a drug even become a market, right? Like how did Advil become Advil, or Tylenol or ibuprofen, like all of those. And even though it may have been a weird stepping stone from medical devices to regulations, right? Regulatory basically, and the submission side, then I kind of fell in the middle of the sandwich and understood that there's a lot of diaries that people in a clinical trial need to focus on, which also brings in IRT and ECOA and e-consent and all of the pretty things that we do now. I unfortunately was not in a clinical trial where they had those pretty things because it was a long time ago. So I had an archaic, it almost looked like I guess a BlackBerry, if you will.
Okay.
And so I had to put in all of what I ate and how it made me feel. And then I would take a pill and I would tell them how it would make me feel. And I would go for blood work every 2 weeks for 6 months. And at the end of the time that I was there, it was about a year and a half, I got paid. And I was like, wow, that's a nice little side gig, right? And that's where I fell into clinical. And I was like, how can I help people to realize that, I hate to say it, but people realize that they're giving themselves to science in such a real way, in a live atmosphere, right? I mean, I know there's organ donation and all of those things, but you're helping your own world, right? Your own problems. For me, it was celiac disease. For others, it could be ALS, it could be cancer, it could be, you name it, any of the therapeutic areas that are out there. So,
and do you know, like, did whatever this drug was that you were taking, like, did it make it to market? Do you know?
it did not make it to market. So sadly, a lot of celiac disease drugs in clinical trials right now are not making it to market for multiple different reasons, not even meeting their endpoints, or very small research facilities being bought out by larger facilities. And then the whole process starts all over again.
Yes.
So it's an interesting space, I would say, that space of clinical research, because it is such a niche area. It's not, you're not hearing.
Yeah. Does it fall? Do you know, does it fall into rare disease? Is the population small enough?
I think it should, in my opinion. I think it definitely should. But right now it falls into gastroenterology.
Okay. And so after you did this one, you obviously had an okay experience because you did another trial.
I did another one. It was a few years later. And again, at that point in time, I was in the role where I was doing, I was within a clinical role. So I was doing clinical TMF at the time. And I was going through, the TMF, and I was managing the systems, and I was doing all of the validation. And not only was it TMF, but multiple other clinical systems. I managed about 8 systems by the time I was wrapped up my role there. Yeah, it was intense. Wow. And that's when I also realized there's a lot more systems out there. So
yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Going back to ECOA, right? Like I just talked about, like e-consent is another big one. So my consent was like, I'd pick up a pen, I'd read the 500 some odd weird pages and not know what I was really reading, sign off on it. Fast forward, I think it was 5 years later, probably 5 or 6 years later, and the next clinical trial I was in, and they were like, here's a link, click on it, go through everything and electronically sign. And I was like, that's totally different. I had a teledoc appointment with the doctor, the physician. We talked, and it was really a diary of sorts. So again, a food diary. There was no medication. I didn't have to do an endoscope this time, luckily. But that was a really interesting trial as well. That also was more of a diary and technological trial to see if technology would help support this type of clinical trial.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Like by managing what you eat and documenting it, if that would help reduce symptoms because you'd stay away from gluten more or something?
Correct. Yes.
Interesting. So more observational. It was an observational. Okay. Which, I don't think I'm not sure if that's come up on my podcast before, the observational versus help me out.
Like the phase 2, phase 3 studies, or phase 3, 4.
Introvert. Oh, pretty much observing versus actually giving someone and trying to intervene. Or yes, that's what I'm trying to say. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Wow. My tongue twister today. That's okay. So they were just watching you.
They were just
did you notice a difference? Like, did it help?
I actually did notice a difference. And because it was with an app that I would download, it was like a sophisticated app that, you know how you have like the Fitbit app or whatever, and you can scan, you could scan a package of crackers and it's going to say how much iron and fiber and all of that's in it. This was a very similar app, but it was something that they designed, and it would tell you the levels of gluten in it. So I may have left out a little bit. The the ruling before this clinical trial occurred was that the FDA ruled 20 parts per million of gluten was okay in a gluten-free, quote unquote, labeled food. So
Which means
to
there's
me,
really gluten. That mean that's not gluten free.
ding, ding, ding. Yeah. So,
What? Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
So I just kind of went along with it and thought, okay, well, if it's gluten free, I guess I'm not going to have any symptoms. But again, that was kind of part of their philosophy was, okay, well, if you eat a gluten free item that's marked gluten free and it has 20 parts per million and you eat, I don't know, we'll say a cup more than what you're supposed to eat per the suggested serving size, you're getting more than 20 parts per million, right? So are you
Yeah.
going to feel the effects of it or are you not? So it was definitely
Interesting.
observational, but it was all based on food. So it was like, an intravenous type of way to do things because I'm putting it in my body, right? It's not a medication, but it's the food I eat every day. Um,
Right.
it was a really cool trial. It was a short trial. It was only 6 months, and it again was more for the app and the medication. That some people were on a medication route. I was not. I was on more of the observational route because I didn't want to travel to their site, which was in like Minnesota or something. Which it was too far away. Anyway, long story short, it was a really interesting way to do a trial, which again takes me back to my now clinical roots, right? Like,
Yeah.
okay, that's cool. So they use this system, that system, and this system to do this.
Yeah. Okay, so you do this one and then you do a third one. You obviously are very comfortable being a participant, which is amazing. That means they're doing things well. So
They are.
tell us about the third one.
Yeah. So the third one was I was also at that point in my career where I wasn't working with patients, but I was doing a little stint on how to market this, right? How to market e-consent, how to market the patient portal per se. So
Mm-hmm.
the company I was with used a product. And again, it got me thinking, oh, well, maybe if this product could be used in a clinical trial, maybe the celiac disease environment is using it.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of twofold. I will say, Suzanne, I felt like a salesperson and I was a participant. Because I
Interesting.
did try to sell them a little bit on the product because I thought it was amazing. The product was a study portal, a PI portal, and a participant portal. So a study site, and participant. And again, I clicked on a link and the consent came up, but it was in a way that wasn't just reading 100 some odd pages. It was like an act.
Really?
It talked a little bit about, if this happens, then you do this. If that happens, then you can expect that. So it
Uh-huh.
enabled, for lack of better words, someone who has no clue about clinical trials, what a clinical trial is, why you're giving your body to science in such a proactive way, in a smart way, in my opinion. And it was really cool to see that unfold. And again, it was fairly observational, but they also sent me in the mail a package of pills. And so this was COVID time period. So you can imagine that
Oh,
also had a lot to do with things. So it was randomized and, maybe I got the medication, maybe I didn't. But the nice thing about the end of that trial was I did get a report saying all of my statistics were mine to keep. All of my
oh,
results, lab work, and everything like that, I could take home with me and give to my primary physician, and gave to my gastroenterologist as well. And so
uh-huh.
that was really nice because my gastroenterologist obviously is not a participating site or PI of that trial. So
Yeah.
I sort of got him into it as well. And
That's funny.
he ended up
Do you
partaking in the trial.
Oh, really? So he ended up joining it.
Yeah.
Do you do you know again with did this one make it to market?
It's still on, it still has a few years left. It has 3 more years
Oh,
left.
wow,
So
it's a long term. So are you still part of it?
no, I'm
Oh,
not still part of it. Yeah.
okay. So you
Yep,
were
it was
just in it for your
volunteer
time and
for my time, right.
oh, how cool.
So
So
you can kind of see, like, through the attrition of my career, it's also been through this attrition of supporting a clinical trial
yeah,
in a different way. Like, I'm not
yeah,
running a clinical trial. I was in a clinical trial, but I'm also helping them to understand the dynamics of what the sponsors really think, and the sponsors
right.
helping them what the patients think. So, yeah.
Yeah. So do you feel like your experiences of being a patient in these clinical trials have made you better at what you do in your day-to-day work?
I think absolutely. I think for the role that I was playing where I was working in study startup, it fully had me really dialed in. I mean, because that's where you're going to try to get the sites to partake in your trials. And then when you look at a patient side of things, I want to make sure that the TMF is 100% complete, right? Because if it's not
Right.
complete and you're at the end of your trial and you get inspected and your drug has a chances of not going to market as well. So I think it gave me more of a passion to make sure that sponsors and now what I'm doing with consulting is supporting sponsors to make sure that they understand that methodology, right? Like, it's not,
Yeah.
you can't really look at it just siloed. You've got to look at it really full-fledged, start to finish, and
Mhm.
tell the full story.
Yeah, absolutely. So, do you mainly just do TMF or do you have pieces of your other stuff that you do as part of your consulting and
Yeah.
supporting?
It's primarily TMF. However, I'm on a couple different projects right now, helping a group do user access management, which is a big ruling that has come down the pipeline. And understanding if you're a sponsor or your SaaS solution within a clinical trial or life science industry, you still need to manage all of those requirements. So it's
Mhm.
a little of both, and it's pretty cool because I can like basically like stir the pot and say, okay, that's when I did user access management in my IT days. Yes, I can support that project. Or that's when I
Yeah.
helped do, regulatory inspections. I can do that. I can help that project. So I think I just can tap into different areas within my career for supporting at a consulting level. And this is a completely new thing for me. I have never done consulting before in my
Yeah.
20 plus years.
Yes, yeah. As someone who's newer to it as well, just having done it a couple of years, it's definitely a different experience. But it's kind of cool because you're like all these things I've learned over these years, all these interactions I've had, all these different studies I've worked on, all these different situations, and you get to take all that and come up with solutions and apply
Yeah.
it to things. It's kind of cool, right?
That's what I really do enjoy, the solutions, and being able to advertise maybe what another sponsor did that I thought was really, really cool. And
Yeah.
I can advertise it to this other sponsor and say, this would be great if you guys would pick up on, I don't know, this specific milestone or something to that extent.
Mhm. Yeah, I think it's a cool experience. And it sounds like you're still really enjoy the IT side of it, like all the different types of systems.
Yeah.
And do you have the opportunity because for any of our listeners who may not be in the
Mhm.
industry, when you were joking about all the systems earlier, like it's really that crazy. But I mean, it's a good thing. We have all this technology and we're finding systems that can help with specific functional areas. And then beyond that, we're working on making this technology talk together so that it can all work together more efficiently. Like, do you have the opportunity? Do you get to do that kind of stuff, working in new systems and such?
Yeah, I don't. I would say I'm not in the clinical systems as much, but I do get to
Okay.
dabble a little if a client wants me to help them build a training or something to that extent for a system I've never
Yeah.
touched. I'll be in the sandbox playing around. I'll look at their
Yes.
processes and I'll bring in their SOPs and I'll build that training out. But back to kind of what you were saying about integrations, that's a huge part of consulting.
Mm.
It's, how to integrate some of the data that's already in one system to another system to support
Yeah.
maybe the overall like stakeholder reports or agreements or things of that nature that I don't think that a lot of people understand. It doesn't have to be so siloed.
Hmm.
TMS can pull in information for TMS, SSU, all of the data can be in, for lack of a better term, a data lake. And I think that's a really cool thing to be able to integrate it. And some
Hmm.
sponsors are even integrating with other CROs too, right? Like CROs are going to integrate into the sponsor, or maybe they're going to use their CRO TMF, we'll say, and then at the end of the
Hmm.
trial, they're going to upload everything. And it can be very well integrated.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, I am aware of one specific system that's like finding ways to do this, and I think that's really, really smart. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
So, I guess the big question would be like, if given the opportunity, or do you look for opportunities, would you be in another trial?
I think I would be. Yeah, I think I definitely would be. I mean, yeah, celiac disease is something that a lot of people suffer from, and a gluten-free diet is the only medication that we have right now. So, if there's an easier way,
Yeah.
I'm on the bandwagon. I mean, it's one of those autoimmune diseases that the only autoimmune disease that they know what the trigger is. They don't know what the trigger
Interesting.
is for many other autoimmune diseases. So you would think it would be a simple win, right? Like, okay,
Yeah.
well, if you know what the trigger is, then let's block it.
Yeah. Well, I guess the people who are smarter than us are like, it's not that simple.
It's not
So
that simple. Yeah.
apparently, oh my gosh. And let's kind of talk about your why, because you have done this for such a long time, such a wide scape of things as you've been talking
Mhm.
about. So what
Yeah.
keeps you going? What keeps you wanting to do this crazy clinical research thing?
It's fun. Going back to the very beginning, right? I said I was never going to be a lawyer. I mean, the legal industry does have a lot in common, right? You're doing research to find out, say, why or who robbed the bank, right? So you're like investigating it, and so clinical research, that area and that element is a lot of it's research, right? You're investigating how to make things easier for the scientists, and that's one of my biggest goals. Is my biggest passion is helping people, and if I can find an easier way for them to do monitoring visit reports, or make it easier for the protocol to be read from a patient's perspective through system agnostic technology, I that's kind of where my passion lies. So even back to helping people in any way, shape, or form, I think that's my industry. My industry niche right now is the clinical trial space, because I do suffer from an autoimmune disease that doesn't have a medication, and there's a lot of clinical trials out there, and that's how it got me on the bandwagon to understand more about clinical trials.
Yeah. What do you think that you see in the near future as these systems are changing and developing? What do you think is going to be the biggest impact of that?
Um, that's a great question. I think that the use of AI is going to be a huge impact. One of the things I like to tell a lot of people now that are really, all big and bad with this AI, automated intelligence and all this stuff and
Mhm.
augmentation and all these smart things. It's like, well, we've been doing that for a very long time.
Mhm.
Manufacturing has been doing it way before many other industries have ever even seen that acronym, let alone touched it. I remember in my
Yeah.
earlier days, we talked about AI, and the automation in the manufacturing world is so prevalent with AI that I find that can somehow, in some way, support this industry a lot better. Not from a patient's perspective, of course, but more from taking the filing, out of it, right? If we look at just the
Mhm.
TMF, why does it have to be so hard? Like, you should be able to just throw a document in there, have, maybe have the study be the only thing you tell it, and then AI kind of takes it from there. And then as a clinical trial assistant, you can do your real job, right? Like you don't have to be fumbling through artifacts or zones or trying to figure out the date and then calling back. I mean, yes, it's a lot of work for somebody, but there's so many other things that they can be doing than just filing a document. I mean, AI can do a lot if taught the correct way. You know, it has to constantly be taught and fed the information. And I think a lot of organizations aren't there yet. They're not at the point where they're ready to jump ship, and teaching it could be what that person's doing instead of actually filing it and scanning it and, you know, doing the OCR bit and all of that jazz. They could actually be doing the futuristic things and helping teach that AI bot with what it needs to do to make their life easier.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's going to be a lot of positive things in running trials efficiently. I think a lot of people are scared because they assume that just because we want to use it or that individuals want to use it, that they're going to completely disregard oversight, right?
Yeah.
Because as long as we have the oversight in place and they can make trials faster, more efficient, then that means we're going to get that drug out faster to
That's very
the
true.
market.
Right.
We're going to help these patients faster. And I really, personally, one thing I really want to see is that increased connection between the different integration between the different systems, because I think that that will make things faster for trials too.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And I think when you go back to the question of what do I see from a software perspective, I know there's got to be healthy competition, right, within these software companies. But to your point, think about it from our side. Think about it. How can we map your data element from your system to our system without having to create some crazy macro or doing some insane export into a database to clean the data to then upload the data? It should be a very simple way to do that. And I think that, yes, there can be healthy competition, but at the same time, work within that healthy competition to make sure that you're speaking the same language, right? I mean, from a TMF perspective, a TMF management plan is a TMF management plan is a TMF, you know, it doesn't matter what sponsor you're going to, it's always going to be a TMF management plan. So why can't these system people make the study be the study for everything? So
Amen. Yes, preach that. Yes.
Yeah.
You know, I was at a conference, gosh, I think it's like a year ago now, and it was TMF focused, but they actually brought in someone who ran a site. And it was so interesting to hear from her perspective, because she's like, a site can have, let's say, 5 sponsors. They're working on 5 different trials. Right. And then on one trial, you could have, 5, 6 different systems easily.
For sure.
And now you've got your 5 sponsors, which means they have to have like 30 something passwords, 30 something accesses. Like, you know what I mean? And I'm like, that's like such a mind blowing thought, because the site is where we get our patients, right? Whom we need to run the trial. So if you're struggling to get sites because sites are frustrated over this technology,
for sure,
then you're going to struggle getting patients. Like, are they not connecting the dots? I
don't know if they are or not. I mean, I think one of my big things is helping people, right? And one of the big things to help people is to understand their process and to understand what is it that you're doing, where can I interject? And something I had said a few years ago when I was on another interview was, I want to take the technological piece out of the science and scientific brains, right? Because you shouldn't have to worry about it. You should just feed the machine, right? Just feed the machine the data. I and the team behind the scenes will take care of all of that. And I think it's resource heavy, obviously. But I
Mm-hmm.
think if we look at, again, back to like a CRA or a CTA or ETMF analyst, they can broaden their knowledge skills and they can broaden that role to be something much more than it is today. You don't have to just be checking up on files. You don't have to just be checking in on people. And, I know what it can be like. I've been there before where you're constantly badgering people about,
Yes.
oh, we hit the milestone. Where's your documents? You've got, 30 days to upload. Come on, give it to me, give it to me. And it's like you could do so many other things. And
Yes.
I think that the hand that it goes through too could be shortened instead of site, so on and so forth down the line. We could probably make it a lot easier at the site level, let alone just
Oh,
those
yeah.
TMF analysts or any other analyst per se. I think there's a big career track shift that can move
Mm-hmm.
in a pretty cool direction, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Mhm.
I want to ask you a little bit about the medical writing that you did, because to be honest, this is a role that I'm not super familiar with what they actually do. I obviously know they're parts of my team and they're individuals I talk to and make sure we have things. But are you able to tell us a little bit like what you did as a medical writer?
So I actually supported the medical writers. So I did the tables and figures and indices, and built
Okay.
macros into Microsoft Word so that they could just kind of click the button and it would find their headers that would be able to become that index for their files. Because as you know, those files can be very, very large. I obviously don't have a science background. So I did
Yeah.
not write any of the data that's inside of any of them. I just supported the fact that they have a way to easily highlight what they want throughout the entire document and make it their table structure. It was a little more elevated than just saying Microsoft Word table of contents or their Microsoft
Yeah.
Word index, right? Like you can really make that a lot easier. And so not only myself, but a team of experts would make macros and have prompts that would come up in the document to ask you. And you think about Dragon Naturally Speaking and Word Perfect,
Hmm.
it's kind of like that, right? It's kind of going back to that element of, well, tell me what is in this document. You can type it in and then it'll pop up and find the document detail in the table. And then you have your table and your index and you can send it out for review.
How interesting. I find what's really interesting about this conversation is I honestly never thought about some of the technology that goes into the almost day to day type things.
Mm-hmm.
Like you literally did technology to help someone create these tables and listening. Like, I'm like, I never would have, I never connected that dot that like technology would be such a big deal and you want a technologically advanced individual doing that. Like, how
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. And
Incredibly
it's the
intriguing.
small things, right? It's the little thing. I know a lot of people say, oh, it's the little things. It's the little things in
Yep.
life. Well, they are massive, right?
Yes.
It takes a lot of time to go through a 500-page document and find all of these things and
Yes.
format it and all of the page numbers and leaving a page blank to separate your appendices and yeah.
Wow. Yeah, no, that's amazing. So what do you see for yourself in, the next 3 to 5 years? Do you plan on continuing to do consulting or?
I think so. I think I'm going to stick with consulting for a while. I like the ability to fluctuate projects or fluctuate
Mhm.
roles. For instance, again, I'm just doing a TMF completeness review right now, but then another project popped up for user access management. And so it's a different mindset. It keeps me challenged. It's definitely occupying my time and teaching me way more things than I ever could imagine with Excel. I mean, being a business analyst is very difficult when it comes to Excel, and I thought I knew it, and I don't know it as well as I thought I did.
That's funny. I love
Yeah,
Excel. I know a
yeah.
lot of people, even people who are in the TMF area like us, like uh I do hear mixed things, but some of them really hate the Excel stuff, but
Yeah.
I do like it. I mean, yes, maybe we can find other things and advance it. And obviously they're doing that with
Right.
the version 4 of the reference model they're working on.
Mhm.
But I love some of the stuff Excel can help us do.
Yeah, and that's actually a good plug for me. I am going to be I'm going to be speaking this year at the
Yeah.
CDISC event in Nashville in October
Oh,
for the reference
amazing.
model. Yeah.
Oh,
Mhm.
amazing. That's
So
wonderful.
yeah.
I I wish you the best of luck with that. That's such a cool audience. I won't be there because I actually had a conflict. So I feel like that happens with like I watch for all of them, and they'll be
Right.
like, "These are the dates," and I'm like, "Those had to be the dates." Like the 1 week of that entire month I couldn't do or something. But that's exciting. Well, good
Yeah.
luck. I hope you enjoy.
Thank
And
you.
yes, anyone TMF world, like definitely check her out at CDisc. That's
Yeah, it's going to be
amazing.
fun. And again, talking about both of my passions. One is computer system validation and one is TMF. So can we marry
Right.
those two elements together?
Absolutely. Yes. Absolutely. I hope sometime at some point they actually start streaming those. Like,
Um,
you know what I
that
mean? Like instead of going in person, maybe
would
you still pay a fee, but stream
be
it
true.
because
Yeah.
gonna miss out on an awesome presentation because I can't be there in person. So
Yeah, definitely. So it'll be
yes.
my first
Well,
time in C-Disc.
really? You're gonna do great. You're gonna
Oh,
do
thank you,
great.
Mom.
I can tell.
Oh.
Yes.
So,
I attended a couple years ago. I was actually
okay.
able to attend in person. I've
Um,
never presented at it though, but you're gonna do great. And
oh,
TMF
great.
people, we love to talk TMF. So like
Yeah,
everyone's gonna be like super nice.
right. It
We
is a
can't
great,
help ourselves.
yeah.
We
Too
can't
much fun,
we can't
right? TMF.
too much fun. Well, before we wrap up here, I want you to give you an opportunity to tell our listeners how they can connect with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm on LinkedIn. You can certainly find me on LinkedIn. I am Jen Arders or email, which is j.arders@hotmail.com. Love to hear from anybody and talk about any of these things. It'd be great to connect.
Yeah, that's amazing. I especially love that you have all the experience being someone in the trials because it
Mhm.
just gives that extra connection, right? You're not just doing the work, you're like being
Right,
involved. So
right.
so hopefully you'll hear from others with some awesome stories or maybe they'll have some thoughts on
Absolutely.
the gluten-free stuff. Yes, please feel free to write in and you can all agree with us that gluten-free literally means it should have zero gluten. So oh my gosh, well thank you so much for your time today, Jen. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, thanks, Suzanne. It was great speaking with you, and thanks for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
This brings us to the end of today's episode. I want to extend my sincere thanks to our guest for sharing their inspiring journey. If you'd like to connect with them, you can find their contact information in the show notes. I also want to express my gratitude to you for joining us on this exploration of the clinical research industry. I hope you found today's episode insightful. If so, please consider leaving a review on your favorite podcast platform. It truly helps us reach more listeners. If you have any feedback, questions, or comments about the show, feel free to email me at podcast@iceconsultingllc.com. Thank you once again, and I look forward to having you joining us on our next episode of Heart of the Trial.